Hi, guys.
We are here with the first podcast of 2020
Yeah.
and ever.
This will be the first and last podcast.
The first and only.
So you're listening to Wait, Don't Kill Me. This is our first episode.
Yeah, so there will be flaws, but we'll
Yeah.
work through it
100%.
together.
Yeah. My name's Tara,
And I'm Sarah.
and we have been friends for 14 years or more. I don't know, 15 years. Quite a long time. Too long.
Too long.
Too long.
We met in school. She didn't like me. And then
No.
I convinced her and trapped her to be my friend because no one liked me. and
now
we're inseparable, even though we live like thousands
literally
of
across
miles away from each other. But it's fine. Tara's pulling through, holding our relationship together.
Yeah.
While I panic.
Me sending you hundreds of voice notes and then deleting them, be like, never mind.
Them before I wake up. It's not even like I had a chance to reply. I'm like, do we have a mental breakdown? And then we solved it ourselves? Good.
We have been friends for a very long time, and we both love true crime and thought, you know what? We love talking. Why don't we just record it?
Yeah, especially we love talking about true crime, and no one.
Yeah, and no one
in our lives enjoys it, and it's, I don't know. No one wants to hear a story about true crime, I guess.
Yeah, my mom does.
That's nice.
I think, I guess I started off liking true crime because of my mom, because when I was really young, which is not appropriate, but my mom, it's so weird, my mom wouldn't allow me to watch Simpsons, South Park and all that stuff, but true crime, and there was this one TV show which is like based on true crimes in Australia, some of them around areas that we lived in, and then I just became
I feel
obsessed.
like Australia is just like the Wild West. Anytime I watch a movie or a TV series or just like people in general in Australia, it looks like they are as who did I see? Who posted it? Oh, it was Flume. He posted like Australians are just what is it? British rednecks. And I was like,
oh my god, that's so true.
Oh my god, that's so true. I got into true crime when I was, to be fair, I don't really know. I can't really recall the age. I remember that my brother used to always wake me up and like force me to watch like History Channel and Discovery Channel things with him late at night. And then sometimes it would be like cold cases that we would watch. But I think when me and you used to hang out like after school or on weekends, we used to always watch like on AXN or something. Or was it AXN? We would always watch like true crime documentaries.
No, it wasn't AXN. They had like it was sort of like a Discovery Channel, and it was, oh my god, no, it's called like something a true crime.
It's something
channel,
investigation or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, we used to watch it together.
Yeah, it's like for middle-aged moms that stay at home, and we used to watch it. And yeah, so I just remember hanging out and watching those. Or, I mean, yeah, I guess that was like my most instinctive memory of like when I started getting into true crime. So maybe you're the one that introduced me to it.
Oh, wow.
Wow, look at you.
Basically, we're just going to talk about crime, murder, mystery, not
cults.
ghosts.
Cults. Cults.
Sarah loves cults.
I love cults.
And this week we want to talk about kidnapping cases.
Yeah, so it's like, well, for me, this was like my first case of true crime, like me remembering what true crime was. But like in general, there's just so many kidnapping cases and they're terrifying. Because they're so like surreal, very, I don't know.
So I guess, should I start first?
Yes,
on the case that I want to
you
talk
can
about?
go first. I'm very excited.
Okay, so before I start, I'm just gonna give a trigger warning to things I'm gonna talk about this case because it is quite sad and horrifying. But I am assuming you already know if you've clicked on a true crime podcast.
Yes. On the top, there usually is cases. We're going to be discussing cases that have things to do with sexual assault, rape, violence, torture, that kind of thing. So if that's not your jam, I mean, not that that's our jam, but if that
that's not our jam.
If that causes any kind of like discomfort to you or triggering things, I would not. Have a good day. Go find something fun on YouTube to watch.
But I will give a trigger warning if I do go into more details about like the crime. I'm going to start off about the case about Junko Furuta. And before I start, I want to apologize because me and Sarah are going to pronounce things so wrong.
So wrong. Sorry. We are culture kids that barely speak one language.
So if we get things wrong in English, we're going to get things wrong like even worse in another language. So I'm sorry in advance for the future podcast as well. And before when I was doing my research, I actually asked my friend who speaks Japanese, she lives in Japan, and I asked her, like, how do you pronounce this name? How do you pronounce that? So I try, but I'm still probably going to get it wrong.
Don't worry.
So anyways,
my case is in the States, and I was still like, how? What is this county?
Google search. How do you pronounce? So my case is about Junko Furuta. She was born on 18 January 1971 in Misato, Saitama, Japan.
Whoa, so look at you.
She was 16 at the time of the case, and her case obviously became huge. It was called Concrete Encased High School Girl Murder Case. Obviously, this translated from Japanese, so...
that makes more sense.
You actually, like, you thought it was actually called that?
That's not a very, like, catchy headline, but okay.
But I'm sure it sounds much better in Japanese, and I'm not even going to try pronouncing it, so... Junko attended high school in Misato. She was a pretty girl, she was attractive, an active teenager, and she received a lot of attention, which I guess a lot of people were jealous of her because of, like, who she was as a person. She worked part-time at a school, and she lived with her parents and her younger brother and her older brother.
Okay, she was, like, 16?
Yeah, she was 16.
Okay.
She just accepted a job at an electronics retailer, which she planned on working after she graduated, and she was, very close to graduating. She had really good grades, she wasn't absent from school, and she was working part-time at a plastic molding factory, and she was saving up her money to go on a graduation trip. What I read, it just sounds like she's an overall, like, she listened to her parents and didn't mix with the wrong crowd.
Yeah, she was just like a pretty high school girl living her life, trying to get into college.
Yeah, exactly, working hard to go on a trip. On her day of abduction, she was really excited to watch this favorite Japanese drama called Tombo. And I just had to put this in because I went on Google to try to find out what Tombo was. And it was like this really old Japanese show. But the comments were just filled about prayers to Junko and all that stuff, and I just thought it was really, really sad.
All those murderinos did the same thing as you.
Yeah, but at least until now, I guess it gives shine light on her case and her name.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah,
murderinos in general are very sweet people. I must say that.
I know, true. So Junko didn't smoke, she didn't drink alcohol, and she didn't do drugs, which at that time was very uncool in the eyes of teenagers, especially the ones in gangs. There was this one guy named Hiroshi Miyano, and he had a crush on her. But Junko wasn't looking for a relationship or anything, and she turned Hiroshi down. But Hiroshi was well known to be the bully in school, and he was involved in this new generation of gang called Yakuza. I did some research and I found that Yakuza is described as a mafia criminal organization.
Yeah. They're this huge mafia criminal organization but they're usually different families. It's kind of like the mafia of Japan.
Yeah, and different hierarchy.
Yeah.
And I read that they have rituals where they practice this thing called...
Cut off their pinky.
Yes, yubitsume. I probably said that wrong. But yeah, they cut off their left finger.
Yeah.
Left pinky. To remorse and apologize.
Yeah, it's like
It's
to
intense.
atone and then show their dedication to the family that they're serving.
And until today, Yakuza is still considered the most sophisticated and wealthiest criminal organization. But I read news articles that the recruitment had dried up and most remaining members have retired of old age or probably in jail. So,
Or then maybe they're just gotten better at hiding it.
oh, that's true.
They're probably just like way wealthier businessmen now, so they can hide under laws.
So the way I read about, people were afraid of Hiroshi because he was tied to Yakuza and no one dared to oppose him, and the fact that Junko said no to him was like a very big deal. So on November 25, 1988, Hiroshi and his friend Nobuhara Minato, they were wandering around Misato to rob and rape local women. First of all, how did that conversation come up? Like, oh, I'm so bored. Do you want to go rob and like rape someone? Like,
let's go for a drink. And then I was thinking we kidnap a lady. Like, what? Yeah. What is that nonsense?
It's insane. And the fact that they're teenagers, like,
well, here's the thing. It probably started off like really small, like harassment, and then no one's stopping them, and then it just escalates because that's usually how these things go.
Yeah, and they probably feel like, oh, I have the power, no one's going to stop me.
Yeah, exactly. They become fearless.
At 8:30 p.m., they saw Junko cycling home after she finished her part-time job, and Hiroshi forced his friend Nobuhara to kick Junko off a bicycle, and Nobuhara immediately like left the scene. So it looked like Hiroshi was a bystander, and he approached her and like he saw the attack and he offered to walk her home safely, and she accepted the offer. But then she didn't realize that he was bringing her to a warehouse nearby, and this is where he revealed that he was had ties with Yakuza gang, and Hiroshi threatened to kill her and he raped her at the warehouse. And then they took a taxi and then they went to a nearby hotel and he raped her again there. While at the hotel, Hiroshi called Nobuhara, so the guy who kicked Junko off the bicycle, and he called his other friends, and their names were Joe Agura and Yasushi Watanabe. Hiroshi bragged about raping her, and Joe Agura asked Hiroshi to keep Junko captive so that basically they can all take turns sexually assaulting her.
Was she like sedated at this point, or?
It didn't say, but I don't
Okay.
think so. Yeah, and so the group had a history of gang rape. They recently kidnapped another girl and raped her, and she was released. So around 3 a.m., Hiroshi took Junko to a nearby park, and the other kidnappers, Nobuhara, Joe, and Yasushi, they were all waiting. They got her home address from her notebook in her backpack and told her they knew where she lived, and basically threatened her family and threatened to kill her if she tried to escape. And I was just thinking, remember when we were young, when we used to write like pretty much a biography about ourselves, and we used to write our address and what we like, our favorite food, favorite color,
phone number, email,
like
everything.
That is so dangerous. Why did we do that? And we put so much effort. We would decorate it and write things that no one really cares about. Like,
nope, no one
when
cared.
I was young, my nickname was like, that was so dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, don't share your address to anyone ever. No, thank you.
Don't.
PSA of the podcast.
They told her they knew where she lived and threatened to kill her family. They took her to a house in Ayase district of Adachi, and this is where she was gang raped. The house was owned by Nobuharu's parents, and it became like a regular hangout for the gang. On the 27th of November, Junko's parents contacted the police about their daughter's disappearance. First of all, I don't know why it took them 2 days to call the police.
Right? That's a bit concerning, but I keep hearing things like that where it takes like parents a few days.
Yeah, especially in the 80s. Like in the 80s, at that time everyone thought like the world was safe and nothing was really reported, and like kids took care of themselves. But again, because she was, she didn't disobey her parents, and it just seemed out of character for her to not come home. So I'm just surprised her parents didn't report it earlier. But again, I don't know. It was a different time.
Also, I mean, I don't know if it's the case in Japan, but I mean, in the States, like in the early 80s, 90s, it was like you needed 48 hours for the kid to be disappear, like for their disappearance to be notified on like Amber Alert. So I don't know if maybe that was the case, and that's why the report was only 2 days later. I mean, I would hope that was the reason.
Yeah. To make it seem like she wasn't kidnapped, they forced Junko to call her mum and say that she had run away and that she was safe and staying with a friend. She was also forced to tell her mum to stop the police investigation into her disappearance. Again, she's underage, 16. Like, I don't care if she went off and got married willingly. No police or parents should be like, yeah, okay, she's good. We'll take her word, even though, you know, that's unusual. So when Nobuhira's parents were around, so the parents of the kidnapper, because they held her hostage at his house, Junko had to act like she was one of the kidnapper's girlfriends.
Okay.
Yeah, and so when the parents did find out that she wasn't in fact a girlfriend of the kidnapper and that she was kidnapped, they dropped the act because they knew the parents wouldn't tell the police. Like, they made sure the parents were not going to tell the police, which is insane. Like, what the
Excuse me? Were they just like... Was his dad also involved with the gang?
No, I'll explain.
No?
So, no, they later claimed that they didn't intervene in the situation because they knew Nobuhira's connection with the Yakuza gang, and basically they were scared of him, and he was really violent towards the parents. And I read that before the torture began, so when she was just acting like the girlfriend, Nobuhira's mom told Junko to go home, and then Nobuhira like shouted or hit his mom for saying that. And the parents were also not allowed to go upstairs, so they were not allowed Nobuhira's room at all. Nobuhira's brother was also aware and didn't report anything. I don't know how you could live and go about your day knowing your brother or your son is holding a girl captive and like you're pretending to act like you don't know what they're doing to her. Why else would a bunch of this like filthy guys hold a girl captive for days? You know, how do you go to sleep?
What the hell?
It's insane.
And that means like they're going out, so that means they're not being watched all the time. They could have definitely called the police.
Oh yeah, 100%. She was captive for 40 days. She stayed in Nobuhira's parents' place for like 40 fucking days. That's insane. They even invited other Yakuza gang friends to come and rape, abuse, and torture her. It says that over 100 men had participated in the rape and torture. So people were coming in and out of the house.
Chills.
According to the trial statements, 4 of them raped her over 400 times. Okay, so this is a trigger warning. I won't go into too much detail, but there's just so much that they did to her, so I'm just gonna name some of the things. They hung her from the ceiling. They used her as like a punching bag. They dropped barbells on her stomach. They forced her to eat live cockroaches. They forced her to drink her own urine. Forced her to masturbate in front of them. They forced her to dance and sing songs while being beaten. They inserted foreign objects up her like private parts, including bulbs and fireworks. They burnt her private parts.
Oh my god, fireworks?
I know, I don't even know how.
I'm guessing it's like firecrackers.
Yeah, firecrackers, yeah. They burnt her private part.
I thought that makes it better, but just like, if it was a firework, she would have exploded.
No. They burnt her private part with cigarettes and lighters, and her eyelids were, they put like hot wax on her eyelids. They tore off her left nipple. They pierced her breast with sewing needles, and she would slip into, like in and out of consciousness because of the torture. But they would dunk her head in a bucket of water to like wake her up and continue the torture. A guy named Hoichi Ihara was apparently bullied into raping Junko, and he went home and told his brother about it, and his brother told his parents, which the parents called the police. Thank God, like, an actual parent who, you know, is taking some sort of responsibility. Because, you know, they just heard about, they could have easily said, oh, that's not our problem, or like, no, because you raped her.
It's fake, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Or they would say, like, oh, my son's involved in it, I'm not going to report the police because obviously that's probably going to get my son in trouble. But yeah, they called the police. 2 police officers were dispatched to Nobuhira's house, but Nobuhira, or like the family, informed that there was no girl inside. So the police took that as evidence that she wasn't there. I'm losing my mind. It's like they're saying, oh, you don't have a girl who's claimed to be like kidnapped and captive and tortured, who's been missing for days.
when did the police first arrive? Like how many days?
At this time, it had only been 16 days from her disappearance, so she could have been saved.
Oh,
she would
my
have been alive.
God.
Exactly.
That's... Oh my God, that's... Oh,
Yeah.
how
That-
to live with yourself.
It doesn't make sense. It's just so frustrating when people don't do their jobs. They were clearly lazy to, I don't know if they used search warrants back then, but just to search the place.
And those parents.
Exactly. So at the beginning of December, Junko attempted to call the police. She managed to somehow get a phone, but Hiroshi caught her. And when the police called back, Hiroshi told them it was a mistake. Again, red flag. So as punishment for trying to call the police, they drenched her leg in lighter fluid and then set them on fire. They forced a large bottle into her, causing severe bleeding. It was reported that she went into convulsions, which is like a seizure, and they thought she was faking it, so they would set her on fire again because of that.
I mean, do they really not think that they're going to get caught at this point? Or are they just like full-on psychopaths that believe that it doesn't matter at this point?
Yeah, I feel like they believe that. It's disgusting. So she surprisingly survived all of that, and they continued to rape and torture her. She asked them to kill her multiple times, but they refused. And instead, they forced her to sleep on the balcony during winter, and they locked her in a freezer. I don't know how cold it gets in Japan, but even like here in London, when it's winter, I'm outside for like 10 minutes and I feel like I'm dying. So imagine being outside all night and then being locked up in a freezer, as if like being outside during winter isn't enough. One of the kidnappers told the court that her hands and legs were so badly damaged that it took her over an hour just to go to the toilet. Again, how did Noburu's parents not hear her screaming, or like the fires, or just seeing guys come in and out of the house? Especially more than 100 guys.
So many guys. I don't know how not more of them were like talking about it.
There was actually I read on one of the articles, again, I don't know if it's true or not, but actually a girl even came and saw her, and this girl like doodled on her face and like laughed about it. A lot of people actually knew about it. Yeah, a lot of people actually knew about it, but just didn't report it, which I don't understand. Another thing, why didn't if the parents were so afraid of him, just report it, because 100% he would be in jail and you don't have to live in fear anymore. Because of all the torture and abuse, she lost her ability to control her bladder and bowel control, and she was beaten for soaking the carpet, and she was unable to drink or eat because it caused her to vomit, and she was beaten for that as well. Unrecognizable from all the swelling and injuries, and her body was crippled and was given off like a rotting smell that caused 4 boys to lose sexual interest in her. Only 4, by the way. Instead... Okay. Yeah, only 4.
So the other 96 were totally fine.
100%. So these 4 boys went off and kidnapped a 19-year-old and raped her. And she was also on her way to work.
What?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So they were like, oh, I haven't had enough?
Yeah. On the 4th of January 1989, Hiroshi lost a game of mahjong. This game is kind of like dominoes. He decided that he needed to vent out his anger, so he did it to Junko. At this point, she was barely alive. The boys beat her with an iron bell. They kicked her, punched her, placed 2 candles on her eyelids, burning them, and they made her stand up and struck her feet with a stick. She fell onto a stereo and collapsed and went into a seizure again. She was bleeding to death, and pus was coming out all on her infected burns and wounds. And so the boys wore plastic bags, taped it at their wrist, and continued to torture her. They dropped more iron bells on her stomach a few times, poured the lighter fluid on her, and lit her whole body on fire. She tried to put out the fire, but gradually became unresponsive. The attack lasted for 2 hours. So fucking torture her for 2 hours. She later died that day, meaning she didn't even die on the spot. She was going through all that, and then, yeah. So less than 24 hours.
She's so freaking strong.
I know.
I don't think I would have been ever able to survive
no
that.
Way.
That's just shows how resilient she was.
Exactly, and that's just not. I just feel like you have to be mentally strong to be able to survive all that as well, not just physically.
I don't know how. I can't. I don't even want to imagine that.
Less than 24 hours after her death, Nobuharu's brother called to tell that she appeared to be dead. Afraid of getting caught the murder. Oh, now you're afraid. After 40 days of like torturing her.
They wrapped think this through.
No,
like,
they're like, oh shit,
she's going to survive forever.
We can actually get in trouble for this. They wrapped her body in blankets and shoved it into a travel bag. They put her body in a 55-gallon, which is 208 liters, drum, and they filled it with wet concrete. At 8 p.m., they disposed the drum in Kyoto. They were actually going to dispose it in the sea, but then they just saw like empty land and they were just like, oh, I'm going to dispose it there. And I saw the photos of the crime scene. The sea was literally...
Geniuses.
The sea was literally like 500 meters away. Instead, they were too lazy to drive to another 500 meters and just like, let's just dump it at this empty land. Because if they dropped it in the sea, it would have like sunk because of how heavy it was.
Yeah.
So again, idiots. So on 23rd January 1989, Hiroshi and Joe Agura was arrested for the 19-year-old woman that they gang raped and kidnapped that I mentioned earlier. And on the 29th of March, 2 police officers came to interrogate them because women underwear were found at their house. And during the interrogation, one of the police officers made Hiroshi believe that they knew about murder. And the thing is, they weren't even talking about Junko's murder. They were talking about another case. And then Hiroshi admitted to Junko's murder. So the police officers were actually really surprised and just were really confused. So,
oh my god.
Yeah, another idiot. They're so stupid.
But they're young, right?
Yeah, Hiroshi was the oldest and he was 18 when he got arrested.
They are dumb as shit. I mean, it doesn't excuse them. I'm just saying, like, obviously they will get caught.
Yeah.
They are dumb. Like, their front, like, brain is not fully developed.
Yeah, like their prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed, so... Yeah, so Hiroshi told them where they could find the body. They found the drum and she was identified by fingerprints, because obviously she was unrecognizable. When they found her body, Oronamin sea bottles, which is a glass bottle, and I searched it up. It looks like, do you know like Red Bull bottles in Malaysia, where the really sweet ones?
Oh, the
glass
Thai
Red
one?
Bull. Yeah, that one. It looks like that. And yeah, they were shoved up her. She was also found to be pregnant despite her uterus being severely damaged.
Okay.
So sad. On the 1st of April 1989, Joe Aguro, Yasushi Watanabe, Nobuharu Minato, and Nobuharu's brother were arrested for separate sexual assault and the murders. I won't go too much about the trial because it's very long, but basically, regardless how brutal the crimes were, they were considered as juveniles. And their identities were hidden. All boys pled guilty to committing bodily injury that resulted in death, rather than murder. Before I get into the sentencing, by the way, I want to say that 3 out of the 4 guys have boasted about the crimes and what they did to Junko, even after, like, being released from prison. And they have reoffended.
Obviously, they reoffended. Yeah. I don't understand. Obviously.
Exactly. Nobuharu, even at the age of 45, he was still well protected by the juvenile law. That's what I read. Not sure if it's true. In July 1990, Hiroshi got sentenced. He got his sentence reduced to 17 years in prison. But he tried to appeal the judge, and the judge gave him an extra 3 years, so it became 20 years in total, which is the highest sentence in Japan before life imprisonment.
Oh, okay.
And he was 18 at the time, so I think he was convicted the closest to an adult sentence, and compared to the other like kidnappers. And I don't know if it's because he was like, he's the one who actually started the crime and everything, or because he was 18. So it was reported that his mother gave Junko's family 50 million yen, which is $425,000. Nobuharu Minato was 16 years old at the time, and he received 5 to 9 sentences. His parents, who was in the house the whole time, and brother were not charged. Yep. And it was said that Junko's parents won a civil war.
But they like obstructed justice.
Exactly. I don't know why.
Okay, I don't know anything about the laws in Japan, so I can't say
exactly.
anything.
So I can't say anything.
But do they come out as like? Do they have to register as sexual offenders?
No. Their identities all changed. Exactly.
What?
Yeah.
How is that allowed?
I guess because they were juvenile, so they want to technically, if you were sentenced as juvenile, when
they
you come
didn't
out,
want to
you
ruin
get new
their
identity.
lives.
Yeah.
They destroyed someone else's.
And so many other people, her friends, her family.
Oh my god. Screw them.
Yasushi Watanabe was 17 years old at that time and received 5 to 7 years. Ju Oguro served 8 years in juvenile prison. He was also 17 at that time. And his mother allegedly vandalized Junko's grave because she said that Junko ruined her son's life. Trying to stop myself from saying anything.
You know what?
I'm not even gonna bother.
Not worth our breath, this woman. You'll love your kid forever, right?
Yeah.
But if your kid does something like that,
yeah,
it's no longer.
Sorry, that's not your kid.
He's no longer your kid. Like, you can love the old one that you have good memories of, but dead to me if that was my kid. I'd be testifying in court to throw him in.
Bro, the person's like, he didn't even do that much of a crime. Put him in jail.
I don't even want to speak to him.
Okay, so it was said that Joe used up all his father's savings, which was supposed to go to Junko's family as restitution as well. So I want to end my case with this. It literally made me cry when I read it, but it was from one of her friends during Junko's memorial. Jun Chan, I guess maybe that's a nickname. Welcome back. I never dreamed that we would see you again in this way. You must have been in so much pain, so much suffering. By the way, it's going to be a bit broken because it's translated from Japanese. The happy we all made for the school festival looked really good on you. We will never forget you. I've heard that the headmaster has presented you with a graduation certificate, so we graduated together, all of us. Jun-chan, there is no more pain, no more suffering. Please rest in peace.
Also, I think it might be Jun-san, if that's how usually they address people in Japan, but it's okay. I mean, I get the point. But I particularly like the Google Translate of the happy we made.
The happy. And it's HAPPI, not HAPPY. But yeah, that's my very sad, depressing case.
What a downer.
Yeah.
We're really roping people in, Tara.
I'm sorry.
Join us weekly for more depressing shit.
Exactly. We just need to let all our emotions out, at least once a week.
I watched was it The Grudge on Netflix, the series, the Japanese series, and they do mention her case, like, it
really
appears in the news, and then they find her body, but it's not about her. I didn't know that. But it's just it's mentioned.
I watched,
there's like a few crimes mentioned. It's not
I watched
a good
the first
series. Don't watch it.
I was gonna say I watched the first few episodes.
Watched everything. It was a waste of time. No offense to anyone that likes it.
This podcast will also review Netflix series.
Yes, because that's all I do is watch Netflix. Okay, well, I guess I will go next. Yeah, my case is not as intense as yours. Of course, it is intense because it involves a child, but definitely not. You know what? You can't compare.
No.
A struggle. Like, this is all awful. All of it's awful. There's no one thing that's more awful than the next.
Exactly. By the way, like, I don't know why cases about children, like, me, I love reading about any case, and I sometimes I even look at the crime photos.
I hate it.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
I know you hate it. And you don't like listening. You don't like listening to 911 calls either, do you?
I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like people bragging or those rants.
Yeah, and you don't like watch trial. You don't watch trials either as well. Courtroom.
I don't mind sentencing. I just don't like anything that involves the person talking. I don't like interviews. I don't like any of that because they're just psychopaths and they're liars and they just love attention. And I just don't want to participate in giving them any attention. So I'll read all about it. I'll read interviews, but I don't want to watch them.
For me, like, cases about children, it just hits me so much harder. Like, it's more difficult for me to read about it or find out more information, or even just, I don't know, even the Netflix series about Gabriel Fernandez, the 8-year-old boy who was abused and tortured to death.
Oh, okay.
Do you know about it?
No, I
Anyways,
don't.
it's a very famous documentary, and I watched like the first few minutes of the documentary, and I couldn't. So when it's about children, it
I think it's more because of the innocence, and
exactly
most of the children don't
vulnerability.
understand what is
No,
going on. And
exactly,
I think I think that's kind of, yeah, it's really, it's hard. It's hard to think about, like, babies practically.
exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so this case is the one that I vividly remember being the first, like, of course I'm sure I heard about murder and things like that when I was a child, or, don't talk to strangers, you could get kidnapped. Like, I definitely had those talks. Like, stranger danger was really important growing up. But I just remember being 8 years old and driving in a car and listening to the radio station, and they were talking about this girl who got kidnapped. And it was really big news where my hometown is, because it was maybe 20 minutes from where I lived. So it was like everyone was on high
Oh,
alert and
that's
everyone was
close.
terrified. And I just remember seeing this image of her, and the story was that she, like, was taken from her home in her nightgown. That's what's, like, constantly in the news. And I just remember being so terrified as a child. Like, I don't know how my parents were like, maybe you shouldn't be watching this or listening to the radio. I think
Yeah, exactly.
parents just, like,
Our
don't
parents,
notice.
yeah, our parents are just like, you should watch it so you can learn and know how dangerous the world
Yeah,
is.
and the thing is that the girl in this case, she was about my age. So I was maybe about
Oh,
8 years old, and she was 9 years old. But she looks
oh,
like she looks very, very young. Like,
okay.
so I just remember going to sleep at night being terrified. Like, I think I slept in my living room. I was so scared. Um, Not that that would help, but yeah. So today I'm going to be talking about the murder of Jessica Marie Linfield. It was next to my hometown. She's from this place called Hamo. Hum, you know what? It's a place in Florida. Okay, no, I got this. I listened to people
Come
talk
on,
about it.
you can do it.
Homo Sessa. Was that Homosassa? I think that's it. Homosassa,
Moses.
Florida.
Yep.
I don't know where it is exactly. It seems like a really small county. There's only about 2,000 people there. But it's pretty close, like maybe 20, 30 minutes to where I'm from. On the night of February 24, 2005, 9-year-old Jessica had disappeared from her home that she shared with her father and her grandparents. And of course, there was a Amber Alert set out, and they were doing rescue searches all around. So 3 weeks after Jessica's disappearance, so this happened on March 12th. So
2005, right?
yeah, 2005. John Evander Corey was arrested in Augusta, Georgia, at the request of the Citrus County Sheriff's Office for questioning about Jessica Lunsfield's disappearance. So he was questioned due to his residency, which was super close by to the Lunsfield's home, and he had a criminal record that was quite extensive. He was arrested dozens of times for burglary, and he was also a convicted child sex offender. But of course, due to laws back then in Florida, especially, he only served short sentencing and was not monitored after his release. So,
Brilliant.
despite being a convicted child sex offender,
No
he wasn't
worries.
monitored.
Go out.
Yep, no, it was
Live
totally
your life.
fine. So
Can you imagine how many sex offenders we have encountered throughout our whole life that we didn't know? I
I
always imagine that. Or like when I'm outside, I'm like, oh my god, how many of you have murdered people? Or maybe that's just me.
I mean, I wouldn't think that much, right? There's not that many murderers.
You never
there's
know.
murderers, but
Just be safe, guys.
yeah, please.
Don't trust
Please.
anyone. There you go.
Please. Be safe. So he was arrested in Georgia, but he said that he didn't know anything about the 9-year-old's disappearance. He moved to Georgia to find a job, and he only heard about her from the television news. Like he that's the only time that he's heard about her ever, apparently, according to this idiot. So the police had nothing on him, so they just like let him go after they were interviewed because they couldn't charge him with anything. So 2 days later, after the police had interviewed him, they went to his trailer home, which he lived in with his half-sister, her boyfriend, and their kids. They had just acquired permission to do a search of the trailer home. And the half-sister was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And during the search, they found a bloodstained mattress and pillows in his closet. And after forensic analysis, they discovered both Corey's and Jessica's DNA on the mattress. On March 17th, Corey was arrested and charged with the murder of Jessica Lunsford and then transported to the Citrus County Jail in Florida. So they
and at this time, they haven't found her body.
No, they just they had enough to charge him with.
Wow,
but
that's really good.
Yeah, they acted on it.
Because sometimes they're just like, oh, well, yeah, there's DNA, but we need more.
Yeah. I'm guessing it was just because it was such... I mean, 1, she was a little girl. 2, she was a white little girl. So there was like an uproar going on in Florida. So, you know, a lot of times police are just like, we need to catch someone. Like, people are upset, so they want to try to solve things as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And they probably thought they could get more information when he was in custody. Which they were correct. Almost immediately after he was arrested, he confessed to kidnapping, raping, and murdering Jessica. And I'm so sorry, but this is about where it gets pretty dark.
Trigger warning.
Yeah, so they have video recorded confession tapes. What a fucking coward. Like, how could you just immediately confess?
Yeah.
Okay. Corey says that he had previously seen Lunsford playing in her yard and thought she was about 6 years old. So it's even worse that he kidnapped a 9-year-old that he thought was 6.
Oh my God. He was just like, oh, wow, she's a lot younger.
Yeah, it's crazy. So
insane.
On the night of abduction, Corey had intended to just according to him, to just burglarize the Lunsford house, but saw Jessica and acted on impulse and he took her. It's like these things, I don't think... no,
he
it's
was
not
just like,
true,
oh,
right?
actually, I've changed my mind. I actually am more interested in a child than robbing someone.
I don't know. And he entered Lunsford's house at around 3 o'clock in the morning through an unlocked door, and he had wakened her and said, don't yell or anything. And
okay, wait, before...
Why
aren't people locking the doors? I hear so many cases of people just coming in. Like the Golden State Killer comes in so many houses. Why? Because people don't lock their doors.
Yeah, I don't know. That was never a thing growing up in my house. I don't know if it was just my Eastern father that was like, lock all doors. But yeah, no, I have like friends that like went to school up north and like in the States, and they're just like, yeah, so during the winter I would just go out and start my car engine so the ice would melt and then I could drive to work. And I was like, I'm sorry, you started your engine and then you went inside and got ready? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, in Malaysia, you leave your like door unlocked for 5 seconds. And there's like
someone will come in and still...
Yeah, what the hell? You have it locked inside a security car park and someone will still break into it.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, so they didn't... I don't know why they didn't lock the door, Tara. I wish I could tell you. Please lock your doors.
Please lock your doors, everyone.
So dumb. So he asked her... So he said, don't yell or anything. And of course, being a 9-year-old, being awoken by a strange man in the middle of the night, you're terrified. So she just followed him.
Oh my God, poor little
So
girl.
he occupied a trailer, the same one that he shares with his sister and her family. some 100 yards away. So that's about 90 meters or so away from where they lived. He was like a neighbor.
Oh my god. Don't trust your neighbors, guys.
Don't trust your neighbors. Don't do it. So I think this area in Florida is probably like a lot of trailer parks, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
It's a really
It could be
small...
like a knit close, like sort of, you know how things are very close to each other.
So Corey admitted to raping Jessica in his bedroom and keeping her in his bed that evening, where he raped her again in the morning. And then
oh my god,
he put her in his closet and ordered her to remain there, which while he reported to work. So he went to work the day after he kidnapped her, and then he told her, like, you have to stay in this closet and shut the fuck up. And he went to work. So he did this for 3 days. And
3 days?
Yeah.
Oh my god. And she was 8, 9.
Yeah, 9 years old.
And he thought she was 6.
Yeah. So 3 days after he abducted her, Corey tricked Jessica into getting into he tricked her in getting into 2 garbage bags, saying that he was going to take her home. Instead, he buried her alive as he decided he couldn't do anything else with this little girl. He said he didn't
You can't do anything else. You're doing the worst thing possible. What do you mean?
Yeah, he didn't want people to see him with her, so he just wanted to get rid of her. And so he bound the Jessica's wrists together with speaker wire and placed her in the garbage bag, and then placed the bag, like, so he placed her in 2 garbage bags, and then he buried her alive in a shallow grave where she suffocated to death.
No, that's so sad.
So because Corey had asked for an attorney before beginning the interrogation, and he wasn't given one, like the police didn't give him one, during his trial, they tried to throw it out of court, like try to throw his statements, his confessions out of court, saying that it violated Corey's 6th Amendment right to counsel and right to due process. Yeah, at the end of the day, the judge was still, they still allowed it to go in court, thank God.
Good.
Because he was just like, well, it's still a confession.
Yeah. What the hell?
On March 18th, so that's the day after he was arrested, the police went to Corey's residence and were trying to find her body, and they found her under the front porch, buried in a hole approximately 2.5 feet deep and 2 feet wide. So it wasn't... Oh my God. It's like a meter and a meter and a half, or like a meter and half a meter deep. Is that crazy? And then he just covered it with leaves. Minimum effort. No effort at all. No effort at all. So
a dog could do better than that.
So the police said that she was found clutching her stuffed dolphin, a toy that she had like won at the state fair earlier that year. So he allowed her to bring it with her while she was being abducted. And
poor baby.
Yeah, so the body was immediately removed from the ground and then transported to the coroner's office.
Oh
and,
my God.
Her body had already undergone moderate to severe decomposition.
Sorry, how many days since the murder? So how many days was she in? Was she buried?
It had been probably like a month by then. Yeah, it's been a month.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. Since she was buried alive at this point. So
that's so sad.
Yeah, it's terrifying. So also in the coroner's office, they discovered that in the report, like the autopsy report, 2 fingers had tried to poke through the bags before suffocating to death.
Oh my God.
So she was still awake and alive when she was buried. So, but they think that she could have only survived 3 to 5 minutes due to lack of oxygen.
Yeah, it was 2 bin bags, wasn't it?
Yeah, but how...
And she was buried.
Awful. For 5 minutes. she suffocated
Just
to death
suffering. Exactly.
by herself after something so horrendous. On March 7th, 2007, so that's 2 years after he had first confessed, Corey was found guilty on all charges in relation to the Lunsford's death, including first-degree murder, kidnapping, burglary, and sexual battery. The jury were tasked to deliberate, and they were tasked to either choose whether he was going to do life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty. And then about a week later, after 1 hour and 15 minutes of deliberation, a jury recommended Corey to be put to death. So during the sentencing that happened on August 11, 2007, Corey's defense argued that he had suffered from a lifetime of emotional abuse and had a below normal IQ, and this would like enable him to go through with the death penalty under the Supreme Court. So there's a law in the states that if people are mentally ill, that it's not their fault that they're mentally ill, essentially, so they can't be put to death. Okay, so pretty much the judge was just like, no, that's not a valid argument. He's going to be sentenced to death. And
death penalty is still in Florida.
Yeah. It's still a thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Where they're very, as some would say, backwards in Florida. So if you're eligible to vote in the United States, thank you very, very much.
So many PSAs in this podcast.
So many, forever. I'm just PSA. Okay.
Just giving advice.
Yeah, we should just be an advice podcast. Yeah. Mark Lunsford, which is Jessica's dad, he spoke after Corey's sentencing to the court. I don't know how people do this, like victims' families. I don't know how they have the energy or emotion.
I don't know how they have, exactly.
I would never be strong enough to do that. I can't imagine ever being able to do that.
Just start
crying.
Yeah,
so he referenced Corey's earlier comments during the during the trial, in which he said that Corey said when he gets to heaven, he would apologize to Jessica. And Mark Lunsford, I don't know, I don't even want to get into that.
You're going to heaven? Last time I recall.
Yeah, so Mark, Jessica's dad, said, I have some bad news for you. I don't think you're going to make it there. And I'm like, hell fucking yeah. And he called Corey to drop for his appeals. You want to do something for her? Give her your life, the one you took. And
that's so good. That was such a good statement.
Right? Okay. Sorry, I'm not yelling at you. On September 30th, 2009, so that's 2 years after his initial sentencing, and 4 years after the kidnapping. He died in Jacksonville Memorial Hospital after complications from anal cancer. Maybe there is a God.
Maybe there is a God watching us.
Anal cancer. Okay. He wasn't put to death because the court never carried out the death sentence.
Right.
He died beforehand. But good riddance. We don't need you in life. It's better that you got cancer.
Yeah.
Than just be put to sleep like a fucking dog.
Right.
Following her death, her father, Mark Lunsford, pursued new legislation to provide more stringent tracking on released sex offenders. And they enacted the Jessica Lunsford Act.
Amazing.
Named after her, and it requires tighter restrictions on sex offenders, such as wearing electrical tracking devices and increased prison sentences to sex offenders. After all this strategy, there was some good things that came out of it. But you know what? These type of strategies shouldn't have to happen for these things to be enacted. That it should have already been done.
Yeah.
And this wouldn't have happened.
But this is what happens so many times. Brutal cases happen, and then the parents have to fight for a law to be.
They become fucking lawyers.
They become lawyers. They become activists. It's not their job. They're the victims themselves. They shouldn't be having to fight for basic rights. I don't know. It's
and they're fighting for other people at this point because there's nothing that they can do.
Exactly.
And oh my god, it could have just been so different. And she was just this little baby, and this man just thought he had the right to take her away from like the world. I don't understand how people think that way. I really, and no matter how many like cases I read, I can't grasp it.
Yeah.
So that was my case. I know the first episode has been very morbid and
please
sad.
stay and wait for the next one.
You know what? Not everything is going to be about rape and torture of little girls.
No.
We'll do more lighthearted things. I mean,
yeah, we'll try to throw in some.
We just picked like two cases that we found very like close to our heart. I mean, this was just like the first one I remember as a child, and Tara's story was definitely something I remember her like running up the stairs when she was
telling
like
you about
14 and being like, look at this, and I was like, what on earth are you telling me?
And then I remember like a few years later I sent it to you again, and you're like, Tara, you've told me about this case. And then recently this year I sent it to you again. I'm like, and you're like, Tara, I know about this case, you've told me so many times.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite that you.
No.
Sorry if it's a little dark, but it won't always be dark. And also we're thinking about doing more cases, like more centered to Southeast Asia or like Eastern cases. So if any of you guys know any cases that you want like us to cover or anything like that, just
there's
let
so
us know.
many that haven't like people talked about or got the spotlight that it deserves and should receive more attention to.
Yeah, especially I think in other parts of the world besides the States. There's just, I mean, of course it happens everywhere. So it's, if you guys know a story, let us know. We'll try to cover it.
So if you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening to us ramble and talk and pretend like we know anything.
Yeah, we're trying. We will get better. We will persevere through this growth stage, okay?
We'll grow together.
Many podcasts, and let me tell you, the first few episodes were really sketchy, but every great podcast had those sketchy episodes.
We're not sketchy people either, I promise you.
We're intelligent.
We're good people.
We're beautiful. We're kind. That's what I tell myself every morning.
I guess that's it. We're planning to post every week, manifesting into the universe.
Woohoo! Universe, here are my crystal offerings.
Yeah. That she doesn't have any crystals.
No, what a waste of money. Please don't waste your money on crystals. They are rocks. Thank you.
Offending more people.
Offend the hippies.
I guess that's it. We'll see you hopefully next week. And if not next week, then soon. Do you want to say bye, Sarah?
Goodbye.
Bye. And don't trust anyone.
How dark.
You can say... Okay, no, honestly, don't trust anyone.
Yeah, okay, please lock your doors. Thank you. That's the
PSA. Lock your doors.
God damn it! Just
don't
lock
trust
your
anyone. Just don't leave your house.
Just stay inside. Also, quarantine 2020.
Quarantine.
Please still do it. There's a pandemic.
Wear mask. Sanitize your hand, like me, to the point that my skin is literally dry and about
peely.
to peel off.
But at least you're clean.
At least we're clean and safe. Goodbye.
Bye.